The decision by President Donald Trump to halt USAID funding to Africa has sent shockwaves across the continent, sparking debates about the future of foreign aid, corruption, and Africa's path to self-reliance. This bold move, rooted in Trump's America First policy, has left many African leaders in a state of panic, exposing their over-reliance on external assistance and, in some cases, their inability to manage resources effectively. While the immediate consequences are severe, particularly in critical sectors like healthcare and education, this decision also presents an opportunity for Africa to confront its challenges head-on and chart a new course toward sustainable development. Let's dive deeper into what this means for Africa and the world. On January 20th, 2025, President Trump signed an executive order suspending all U.S. foreign aid for 90 days. This decision was part of his broader America First agenda, which prioritizes U.S. domestic interests over international commitments. The move was intended to review how foreign aid aligns with American priorities and ensure that taxpayer dollars are used in ways that directly benefit the U.S. However, the ripple effects of this decision were felt almost immediately in Africa, a continent that has historically relied heavily on foreign aid for development. For decades, U.S. aid has played a critical role in Africa, funding programs in health, education, agriculture, and infrastructure. One of the most significant programs affected is the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, PEPFAR, which has been instrumental in the fight against HIV/AIDS. Since its inception in 2003, PEPFAR has provided life-saving antiretroviral therapy to millions of people, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. With the suspension of funding, millions of lives are now at risk, as interruptions in treatment could lead to increased mortality rates and a resurgence of the epidemic. But the impact goes beyond healthcare. U.S. aid has also supported educational initiatives, agricultural projects, and infrastructure development across the continent. For example, programs aimed at combating food insecurity in East Africa may now stall, leaving vulnerable communities at risk of famine. Educational initiatives funded by USAID could lose critical resources, affecting school enrollment rates, teacher training, and scholarship opportunities. Infrastructure projects, such as the construction of roads, bridges, and clean water systems, may be abandoned mid-construction, hindering long-term economic growth. The sudden withdrawal of U.S. aid has left many African nations scrambling to fill the void. For countries that have become overly dependent on foreign assistance, this decision has exposed their vulnerabilities and raised urgent questions about their ability to sustain development without external support. One of the underlying issues highlighted by Trump's decision is the problem of corruption in many African nations. For years, foreign aid has been misused by some leaders, with funds disappearing into private pockets instead of being used for public good. This misuse of resources has perpetuated a cycle of dependency, where African nations rely on external assistance rather than building sustainable systems and economies. Trump's decision to cut aid is, in many ways, a direct challenge to this system. By halting the flow of money, he is forcing African leaders to confront their reliance on foreign aid and take responsibility for their own development. While this move has been criticized for its potential to harm vulnerable populations, it also shines a light on the need for greater accountability and transparency in how resources are managed. Corruption has long been a barrier to progress in Africa. It undermines trust in government, discourages foreign investment, and diverts resources away from critical sectors like healthcare and education. By cutting aid, Trump is essentially calling out this systemic issue and pushing African leaders to address it. This could be a turning point for the continent, as it forces nations to prioritize good governance and sustainable development over short-term gains. However, the road to overcoming corruption is not easy. It requires strong institutions, transparent policies, and a commitment to holding leaders accountable. While Trump's decision may serve as a wake-up call, it is ultimately up to African nations to take the necessary steps to combat corruption and build a brighter future for their people. Trump's decision to halt USAID funding. Implications for Africa. While the immediate consequences of Trump's decision are severe, it also presents an opportunity for Africa to accelerate its push towards self-reliance. For too long, many African nations have relied on foreign aid as a crutch, rather than investing in their own economies and systems. This moment could serve as a catalyst for change, prompting African leaders to rethink their strategies and prioritize sustainable development. One of the key areas where Africa can focus is domestic revenue generation. Many African nations have vast natural resources, yet they often fail to fully leverage them due to poor governance and mismanagement. By improving tax collection systems, increasing transparency in resource management, and investing in key sectors like agriculture and technology, African nations can reduce their reliance on foreign aid and build stronger, more resilient economies. Another important step is diversifying partnerships. While the U.S. has been a major donor, other global powers like China and Russia have been increasing their presence in Africa. China, for example, has invested heavily in infrastructure projects through its Belt and Road Initiative. While these partnerships come with their own challenges, such as debt sustainability, they also offer opportunities for Africa to access new sources of funding and expertise. Regional organizations like the African Union and the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, also have a critical role to play. By working together, African nations can pool resources, share best practices, and advocate for their collective interests on the global stage. This collaborative approach can help Africa build a more unified and self-reliant future. Trump's decision to halt USAID funding. Implications for Africa. Trump's decision to cut aid to Africa is not just about the continent, it's also a reflection of a broader shift in U.S. foreign policy. Under the Trump administration, the U.S. has prioritized domestic interests over international commitments, signaling a move away from its traditional role as a global leader. This shift has raised concerns about the U.S.'s diminishing influence on the world stage and its ability to maintain strong alliances. At the same time, other global powers are stepping in to fill the void. China, in particular, has been increasing its presence in Africa through infrastructure investments, loans, and trade agreements. While these partnerships offer opportunities for development, they also come with risks, such as debt dependency and loss of sovereignty. African nations must carefully navigate these relationships to ensure they benefit their people and align with their long-term goals. The U.S. withdrawal from Africa also raises questions about the future of U.S. Africa relations. Will this move push Africa closer to other global powers? And what does it mean for the U.S.'s role in the continent's development? These are complex questions that will shape the dynamics of international relations in the years to come. Trump's decision to halt USAID funding. Implications for Africa. Despite the challenges, there is hope for Africa's future. This moment of crisis could serve as a catalyst for change, prompting African nations to take control of their own development and build a more sustainable future. It will require collaboration, innovation, and a commitment to good governance, but the potential rewards are immense. Governments, NGOs, and the private sector must work together to fill the gaps left by U.S. aid. Investments in education, healthcare, and infrastructure will be critical to ensuring that Africa's development continues. At the same time, African leaders must prioritize transparency and accountability, ensuring that resources are used effectively and for the benefit of all. Ultimately, the decision to cut aid is a wake-up call for Africa. It's a reminder that true progress comes from within, and that sustainable development requires self-reliance, innovation, and a commitment to the well-being of all citizens. While the road ahead may be challenging, it also offers an opportunity for Africa to redefine its future and take its place as a leader on the global stage. Trump's decision to halt USAID funding to Africa has sparked a critical conversation about the future of foreign aid, corruption, and self-reliance. While the immediate consequences are severe, this moment also presents an opportunity for Africa to confront its challenges and build a more sustainable future. By prioritizing good governance, diversifying partnerships, and investing in key sectors, African nations can reduce their reliance on external assistance and take control of their own development. The road ahead may be difficult, but with collaboration and innovation, Africa has the potential to emerge stronger and more resilient than ever before.